Hello, my name is Andrea Pixley, and this is my In the News project. The article I chose is called Forget Milk, 5 Reasons to Rethink Dairy for Your Healthy Diet by Thor Christensen of the Dallas Morning News. It was published in February 2018 and appears to be targeted toward the early, mid, and senior adult life cycle stages, those people who make their own diet and health choices. According to the author, contrary to any pro-vegan campaigns readers may have been exposed to, milk and other dairy products provide a convenient and affordable source of nutrition, and any health concerns are exaggerated or can be easily mitigated by altering the type or amount of dairy consumed. The article is broken down into 7 key areas of discussion. I will discuss each of these on the following slides by explaining what the author's beliefs or is arguing, the evidence the author provides, my prediction of what the typical consumer would take away from the author's argument, my initial impression upon reading the claims, the fact-checking strategy I used in my analysis, and the results of my expanded research and analysis. Let's start with the author's introduction. In his introduction, the author's beliefs or central claim is books like the China Study and the film What the Health, milk duds and naysayers, as he calls them, are completely wrong and all adults should reconsider drinking milk because it is good for you and does not cause cancer. The author's evidence comes from 2 unnamed meta-analysis studies published in Food and Nutrition Research and Nutrition Journal in 2016. When the typical consumer has finished reading this article, they are likely to be left with the impression that vegans are crazy and dairy products taste good and are good for you, reviving the dairy industry slogan, "Milk, it does a body good." My impression after reading this article is the author is biased and unqualified to speak with authority about the health benefits or risks of dairy consumption. Although the author did not name the specific articles, I was able to fact-check his claims by cross-referencing the data and quotes he used to uncover his source articles in Food and Nutrition Research and Nutrition Journal. I also searched other peer-reviewed scientific articles concerned with dairy consumption and cancer risk. A complete list of my references with links is contained in the references list. My analysis revealed an inconsistency in one of his sources. While the Food and Nutrition Research article does state in the conclusion that dairy consumption does help people meet nutrition recommendations with few adverse effects, as the author quoted, their findings say otherwise. This conveniently omitted from his article. Both of the author's cited studies and others I researched demonstrate a link between dairy consumption and several types of cancer, especially whole milk and prostate cancer. The author's first main point suggests adults can benefit from milk consumption just like kids, noting the prevalence of osteoporosis among the elderly and the benefit of calcium intake in fighting disease. The author's evidence comes from a series of quotes from a registered dietitian from Dallas named Joanne Carson. None of her claims are supported by reference to specific studies or publications. The typical consumer can be expected to trust the authority of a registered dietitian and believe her claims, and may introduce milk into their diet or that of an elderly loved one in an effort to prevent the crumbling bones, as she calls them, of osteoporosis. I call this claim into question based on the fact that the U.S. consumes more milk and dairy than most countries, yet we have a high rate of osteoporosis. I fact-checked the author's claims by searching and reviewing peer-reviewed scientific articles focused on dairy consumption and bone fracture rates. My analysis revealed evidence of statistically significant links between milk consumption and risk of bone fracture, undermining this element of the article and calling into question the knowledge and/or bias of the author's expert source. The author's second main point is non-fat or low-fat milk are healthy alternatives to whole milk. The author's evidence comes from another registered dietitian who starts by referencing 2 unnamed studies that support drinking whole milk, but concedes that non-fat and low-fat milk are healthier. The typical consumer can be expected to take this point to mean these lower fat alternatives within the dairy section are possible answers to the growing problems of obesity and high cholesterol among the population. I wholeheartedly agree that any reduction in saturated fat or cholesterol is beneficial, but there still remain documented risks to the consumption of dairy aside from fat and cholesterol. I fact-checked the author's claims by researching peer-reviewed scientific articles that studied dairy consumption and the associated health risks. My analysis revealed even non-fat or low-fat milk products contain sex steroid hormones, which could potentially stimulate the growth of hormone-sensitive tumors. Dairy consumption may also be linked to an increased risk of asthma, Parkinson's disease, hypertension, and other health concerns. The author's third main point is yogurt is good for digestive health but can be high in fat and sugar. The author's evidence comes again from Joanne Carson, registered dietitian, who recommends buying plain, fortified, low or non-fat yogurt and adding fresh fruit to eliminate the problem of added sugar. The typical consumer may assess a need for yogurt for digestive health and add it to their diet. My assessment is, while the claim made here is valid, the benefits of probiotics can be achieved by consuming prebiotics such as fiber and resistant starch. Adding yogurt, even low-fat or non-fat, low-sugar alternatives to whole milk versions still possesses other risks to overall health, as demonstrated in our previous discussion. I fact-checked the author's claims by researching peer-reviewed scientific articles that studied probiotics in digestive health. My analysis revealed probiotics may be helpful in digestive health for children, but the results are inconclusive for adults. However, probiotics seem to help with antibiotic-induced diarrhea in all ages. Furthermore, probiotics seem to be more beneficial when consumed with fat, so non-fat yogurts may not be as beneficial. The author's fourth main point is readers should pick low-fat or non-fat cheese and skip ice cream altogether. The author's evidence comes from the USDA, which does not consider high-fat dairy products with little to no calcium, such as cream cheese, cream, and butter, to be part of the dairy food group. The typical consumer's reaction to this element of his argument might be to choose healthier options among cheeses and might reduce or eliminate ice cream intake. This is good advice, as high-fat animal products should be avoided. However, there still remain risks associated with overall dairy intake. I fact-checked the author's claims by searching peer-reviewed scientific articles concerned with the effects of low-fat compared to whole-fat dairy products. My analysis revealed, compared to whole-fat dairy products, low-fat versions are associated with decreased risk of metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular disease. The author's fifth main point is soy milk is a healthy, albeit expensive, alternative to dairy. The author's evidence comes from both Bridget McCormick, one of the registered dietitians, and some sourcing from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The typical consumer's reaction to this element of his argument might be that soy may not be so bad after all, but is more expensive than good old milk. My response to this point was positive, finally a legitimate and mostly unbiased piece of information. I fact-checked the author's claims by researching peer-reviewed scientific articles about nutrition and soy milk. My analysis revealed drinking soy milk has been associated with weight loss, relieving constipation, reducing cancer, and preventing chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. Soy milk has 75% more antioxidants than cow milk, and contains phytoestrogens that have a number of health-promoting effects. The author's final point comes in the form of advice for the lactose-intolerant reader. These helpful tips start by questioning whether lactose intolerance is really such a problem after all, and suggest ways to overcome the affliction with milk. The author's source, Joanne Carson again, says those who are lactose intolerant should eat a little dairy so their bodies don't stop making lactase altogether, and denies any evidence that dairy is unhealthy. The typical consumer's reaction to this element of his argument could be to add dairy to one's diet as a treatment for lactose intolerance. I was astonished to hear a registered dietitian would suggest to lactose intolerant people who make up most of the world's adult population that it's beneficial to eat some dairy. I fact-checked the author's claims by researching peer-reviewed scientific articles concerned with lactose intolerance. My analysis revealed there is evidence that some lactose individuals may improve digestibility with prolonged exposure, but overall, results have been inconclusive. According to his LinkedIn page, Thor Christensen is a freelance writer, reporter, and music critic. He started working at the Dallas Morning News in 1995 as a pop music critic and became a feature writer in 2009. Of the at least 36 articles I found that he wrote by himself and scores more he co-authored, the majority, 29 out of 36, are music related. Only 2 besides this article are nutrition related. He appears to have no nutrition background whatsoever. Dallas News is powered by the Dallas Morning News, which is owned by Bello Media Group, based in Dallas, Texas. An executive vice president of Dean Foods, a major dairy distributor and also based in Dallas, Russell F. Coleman was formerly a lawyer for Bello Group. This article was published the same day Dean Foods announced its 4th quarter and full year 2017 results, and that it was canceling contracts with at least 100 dairy farmers. A full review of this article reveals an overall lack of credibility, with 2 out of the 7 elements provably false and 3 that cannot be confirmed. The overall article appears to reveal a lack of knowledge at best, or a biased effort to increase dairy consumption by someone who works for a company with known ties to the dairy industry. A reader of this article is likely to come away with a fundamental misunderstanding of the overall health risks of dairy consumption. Although the article contains some good advice in proving claims, they are underrepresented and could easily be lost to what appears to be the overall intent of the article, to increase dairy consumption by all readers. The author's success on this front is impossible to state with certainty, but the 400,000 plus likes on Facebook may provide an indication that it worked. I consider myself a careful consumer of all news, but I pay particular attention to health news. This article and many others I have previously encountered provides a clear example of an untrained author using apparent experts in studies to tell a story that is beneficial to an undisclosed financial stakeholder. It took hours of research and internet sleuthing to uncover the connections between the publisher and the dairy industry. If a client came to me with this article in hand and asked for my advice, I would convey the following. I would tell him or her my opinion on the article, that it is biased and written for the express purpose of increasing sales of dairy products. We should be cautious about taking advice from non-experts. In a perfect world, we would not be exposed to biased reporting of this type, but until that's the case, he or she should carefully examine and be skeptical of any health claims that are not backed up with a specific reference to a scientifically proven study. Next, I would encourage him or her to reference the articles I've cited here and discuss them with his or her healthcare provider prior to make any dietary changes and address any unanswered questions he or she may have.